Namaste and welcome back to the True to Yourself podcast, a place where we explore the power of authentic living. I am your host, Ananta Ripa Ajmera, and I am happy to join you today to talk about a really important topic on the spiritual path, which is the Sacral Chakra healing journey when you're in emotional pain. It is often emotional pain that brings us to the spiritual journey in the first place, because something in life has caused us to break down in some way and has pushed us to look deep within our own selves to find what is the answer to this sorrow or this pain or this difficulty or tragedy that I find myself in. Sadly, what often happens in the spiritual circles, in yoga communities, and all kinds of churches and temples and synagogues and mosques of all different religious traditions and spiritual paths, there is a tendency for leaders and for teachers to take advantage of the emotional pain that vulnerable seekers are going through when they approach them. This is a really highly unfortunate and all too common experience that goes on in spiritual circles worldwide. And that is why I felt it was really important to educate people on the practice of what is called brahmacharya in Sanskrit. Brahmacharya is a Sanskrit word that is made up of two root Sanskrit words, Brahman, which means the universal, spiritual, supreme consciousness, or the soul, the collective soul. And charya means to follow the path of, to walk the path of your highest self, your soul, your spiritual unfoldment and evolution. Walking the path of your highest self is something that requires a lot of reining in of the five senses, and especially being able to practice abstinence and self-control and self-mastery over any of the senses that is causing you to go the most astray, that is basically an enemy of your own mind. In the Vedic spiritual text, the Bhagavad Gita, the mind is compared to horses that are running freely, and if you don't have the rein on the horses through the power of self-control and the intellect governing the mind, which is more sensual, which tends to go after worldly things, then the chariot is lost and the horses run wild and free, and you may not get to your destination. So we have to really talk about this really important subject of reining in your senses mindfully, and doing so as a way to really connect with your true essence. And I thought I would go ahead and be brave and bold and vulnerable and open with you in sharing about my own experience and my own journey with this spiritual practice of brahmacharya, and of really channeling the sexual and creative energy into a higher spiritual path and a spiritual calling. This is something that I actually always practiced really intuitively without knowing what brahmacharya was or even knowing that that was a thing. But I always found myself, after having some pretty intense attractions to people in my life, contracting back and pulling back and really taking myself on a deeper journey inward to go and purify myself even more in terms of my mind and my thoughts and where they were dwelling. I found that when I would have some kind of an attraction to someone else, I would feel that I was losing myself in that fire of attraction and passion and intensity. And there has always been a part of me that has not really liked that. And so I've always pulled myself back and gone deeper inward to really bring my mind closer and closer to my true self, to that soul within myself. And I would always find that after a period of attraction or getting to know someone and feeling that kind of fire and intensity, it was really important to go really deep into what is the meaning of life, what is the purpose of this existence, and really studying deeper and deeper philosophical teachings to get closer to the truth. I didn't know that this had a name, and I was really happy to find out what that name was once I finally learned that this is actually a really, really potent spiritual practice that allows you to be able to transcend the suffering and the pain and the stress of life by really claiming your true soul power. And when I learned that, it was so empowering because it meant that now I didn't have to question whether I'm some kind of abnormal person who just will not give in to the normal kinds of temptations and pleasures and relationships that most people of my age would give into. And I was also pressured very much from an early age to get married really young, have children, and do the whole 9 yards. But every time I found myself in a relationship, I would always feel that urge to pull back and to come closer to my own true self and not to get lost in someone else's issues and stuff and emotions. And in the Vedic spiritual tradition, what I learned is that when we don't practice brahmacharya, when we allow ourselves to go wild and allow our senses to run free and roam as they will, then what happens is our energy tends to get really mixed up with other people's energy. And so whatever issues we have get muddled up in whatever issues they have. So not only do we have our own issues and our own craziness and our own struggles and problems and worries and fears and anxieties to deal with, but now we've also taken on energetically the worries, fears, anxieties, problems, difficulties, and addictions of another person. And so we've called in even more energy that may not be really of the higher vibration that we're seeking to cultivate on our spiritual path. And this can be a real impediment to our spiritual progress and growth. That is why in the Vedas, the world's most ancient sacred Vedic spiritual texts, we are really extolled to practice brahmacharya, whether we're in a relationship or single, whether we're a monk or a worldly person. This practice is really designed for everyone to be able to reclaim your true spiritual power from the grips of any emotional pain and suffering you may be going through. It's especially important, I feel, for any of us who have survived any kind of trauma related to the sacral chakra, related to the reproductive organs, any kind of forced activity that we were made to engage in that we did not willingly consent to. These are all big traumas that can really disturb our creative, vital energy and make it really challenging for those in female identifying bodies to menstruate properly, to have an easeful daily or monthly cycle. And then it also leads to troubles with conception, and then later on a lot of difficulties with menopause and other such challenges. We believe in Ayurveda, because it is such a holistic healing tradition, that whenever we have any kind of health challenges or fertility challenges or issues around our physical body, they are almost always linked with something even deeper at an emotional level. So any emotional pain or trauma that we have not processed is going to show up in the form of a lot of mental suffering and or physical suffering that may be cueing us into some buried, suppressed, masked emotional pain that has gone really deep inside and will need some work and some digging to really be able to excavate and to heal and recover from. It's really important for us to be able to close off our senses as much as possible in order to access those emotional pain points and those traumas, because it's only when we really are brave enough to go into it, to deal with it, to face it, to be able to dialogue with it, to be able to feel it? Are we really going to heal it? This is so, so important, because I know that so many people struggle with these suppressed traumas that we may not even fully remember from all the way back in childhood or early adolescence. And we often tend to blame ourselves for these challenges and feel that because it happened to us, we must somehow be bad or wrong or ashamed of ourselves for causing this unwanted thing to happen to us. But what we really have to do in this case is to come to terms with this emotional pain. And I am a survivor. I have gone through this myself. And so I found that whenever I would be getting really attracted and really in that kind of intensity of attraction to someone else, that it was a way to run away from this deeper, suppressed, hidden emotional trauma that I had gone through around my sacral chakra area when I was a child. And the more I pulled my senses back into myself, the more I really practiced mindfully controlling my senses and coming home to myself, the more I found that I could finally go into this dark area of my mind and psyche and finally just purely feel whatever pain I needed to feel as part of what I needed to do to heal. And I found that the more consciously I did this practice of coming back home to myself and really committing to being in an amazing relationship with my own self, first and foremost, the more I began to experience a kind of peace that wasn't dependent upon anyone or anything. For a long time, I would also go to sugar and to chocolate and to sweets to try to mask this deep emotional pain that I was feeling. And I realized, wow, this is another way that through the sense of taste and through eating, I can again numb these feelings of being violated, of being scared, of being, really in a difficult state. And the more I really controlled that sense and really started to only eat foods that were appropriate for me in a given time, that were helpful for me, that were going to be a friend to me, only then was I really going to be able to unlock any kind of trap that I had put myself in to really stop myself from seeing and feeling and experiencing whatever was buried or hidden or suppressed. And for many years I thought, well, I keep on pulling back into myself and I stay away from sexual relationships because I feel that I am moving on a spiritual path and I am elevating my energy upwards through my chakras, but am I suppressing something? It was something I questioned myself and wondered about for some time until I really got a proper education, a deeper education on the ins and outs of this brahmacharya practice for really deep sacral chakra emotional pain healing. And when I learned brahmacharya, I learned that it is actually when you are tempted and consciously choose this for a higher ideal that it is going to have the most power in your life. And so when you really are conscious about why you're doing something that may be challenging initially, it has a way of helping you to really ground yourself in what it is you're doing, so that when the temptation arises, you know which way you want to go. I had asked you last week to reflect upon your relationship with your five senses and whether you tend to go to excess or perhaps too little contact with any one of your five sense organs. And I think that's a really important exercise to be able to take inventory of your senses as a kind of clue as to what is the input quality that's coming in and how is that affecting you mentally and emotionally, and in terms of whether you can or cannot even progress on your spiritual path. when we look at the sensory inputs, we have to see which ones are really stimulating, which ones are really inertia inducing, and which ones are clarity promoting. We have to really do that inventory. So I had been on a spiritual path, practicing brahmacharya. Every relationship I almost got into fully, I would pull myself back from, and I would create a critical distance from it enough to really connect back to my own quest, which was and is to know my true self. And then there was one that was really, really hard to do this in, and I had to really ask myself a lot of questions, and I got a little deeper into the sensual experience for a very short time, only for 2 months. But that 2 months, let me tell you, was like living in hell. And I had to really do this inventory that what am I doing in my life that's bringing me peace of mind? And what am I doing that's bringing me agitation and some kind of mental anguish and some kind of nonstop obsessive thoughts? And I realized that the relationship I was in at that time was causing a lot of agitation and a lot of excess passion, and the inputs of the spiritual knowledge I was gaining on my spiritual journey were giving me a lot of clarity, were giving me a lot of feeling of peace and a feeling of being at home within my own self, which is what brought me to the spiritual journey in the first place. And it was important to have this experience of very, very momentarily going off the course of controlling the senses in my life, because it taught me that there is some kind of hidden trauma that this temptation of a very agitating kind, of a very passionate kind, is actually awakening me to. And I'm so glad that I had that experience, because it actually showed me the childhood trauma I had endured, and it awakened me to the need to really go deeper into cultivating the quality of clarity, balance, and harmony, which is known as sattva in Sanskrit, to be able to really find the ability to always remain the witness. Even as I'm going through emotional pain, even as I'm feeling to heal everything, I also needed to get stronger, anchored in what is known as Sakshi Bhava, or witness consciousness. This is when your own self, with a capital S, can really take a critical step back and be awake at all times to observe what is going on within you and around you as a witness, not judging, not reacting, but simply observing. And that observer is actually the self. It is the observer that, when we identify with it, allows us to develop more equanimity and more acceptance and more forgiveness and more ability to really practice detachment and letting go. It's really difficult to let go of anything, and especially it's very difficult to let go of our emotional pain that we have maybe held on to unconsciously for such a long time. But what we have to realize is that on a spiritual journey, it's not about letting go. It wasn't about breaking up with the boyfriend that was really important on my journey to really deepen my own self-knowledge. It was really important to anchor myself in the intention to cultivate more self-knowledge and to really grow spiritually. And when in the midst of that passionate fire of that relationship that supposedly I was supposed to, get married and have children with, and then have a horrible divorce from, I actually really got clear on why I'm here and what I'm here for, and that it is only the truth with a capital T that is going to empower me to save myself. And so therefore, I really anchored myself very deeply into this brahmacharya practice, only to then, a few years later, after going deep, deep, deep within and saying no to temptations, saying no to distractions, I also found that on my spiritual path, I got in a situation where I could have gotten taken advantage of. And because I had cultivated this practice of controlling my senses and really going deep into that over and over again in the face of all kinds of temptations and challenges, I was able to recognize this trauma, this trigger that was coming into my life as being just that. And because I also had awakened my observer self, I was able to really say no and to mean it and to own it. In the context I was in, to say no to what someone in authority wanted from me was a really big and bold and brave and unheard of thing to do. It didn't really bring me anything good from that situation, but it brought me to something great within myself, which is the power of my own soul to be able to recognize where a trauma I've already gone through in the past was ready to play itself out, but this time I knew that I had the power to say no, and I knew that I have the power to overcome this, to sidestep this, to not allow this to repeat, because I know what's going on, because I'm awake, because a light has gone on within myself, and within myself I can find everything that I am actually looking for in outer gurus and in people in any kind of authority. This is so huge, because I recently attended a conference online that was put on by Harvard Divinity School and the Association for Spiritual Integrity about so many scandals that go on in the name of spirituality in all kinds of different spiritual organizations. It was truly heartbreaking, truly heartbreaking to hear and see and witness story after story after story of all the heartache and pain and suffering that so many souls have gone through as a result of authorities in the spiritual world of all different traditions taking advantage of the power that they have. It made me realize just how rare my experience with my ability to see what was happening and to stop it from happening really was, and why it's so important to share where I derived this strength and this power within myself and my journey to not only say no, you may not take advantage of me, but to also start my life all over again and to be able to create my own spiritual organization, to be able to provide a safe space for anyone who is sincerely looking to know their own true self and to awaken to their own inner guru. It is so important on the spiritual path to look for gurus who are all about your own inner guru awakening and who celebrate and support that. And I am so grateful that I have had not just one, but 3 true gurus on my spiritual journey who really celebrated that awakening within me. And it is because of them that I am able to now offer a space through the ancient way to anyone who is sincerely seeking to go home to their true self and to really be able to stand for the truth, even in the face of darkness and even in the face of manipulation and gaslighting and all kinds of abuse and control that so sadly goes on in the name of spirituality. I wanted to share with you, in addition to my own personal story, 2 really potent spiritual practices that you can do to be able to heal any sacral chakra issues that you may be having and to channel any kind of emotional pain and suffering or anxiety or passion or rage or frustration or inertia into more and more clarity, balance, purity, and light. And these are practices that are actually featured in my book, The Way of the Goddess, in chapter 2, which takes you step by step through the practice of brahmacharya to really heal any sacral chakra trauma. And it also introduces you to 9 specific spiritual practices that you can do to really start to build what is known as Atma Shakti, or your divine radiant soul power. When we talk about the Sacral Chakra, it's the second chakra after we have grounded ourselves with the power of stability. And we are introduced in our Sacral Chakra, in this very sacred area of our body, to who is known as Goddess Brahmacharya, the one who practices brahmacharya. And if you look at her image closely in my book, she's holding two objects. One is a rosary bead collection, if you will, and the other is a jar, a copper vessel full of water. And these are her weapons. They're not swords, they're not maces, they're not shields, but let me tell you, they are weapons indeed, because they give you the power to be able to truly become the sovereign master of your own mind, and to be able to make much better choices in terms of who you wish to share your sacral energy with, and to really make that a sacred experience and a sacred exchange that's consensual, that is designed to really awaken your experience of the divinity within yourself by connecting with that in another human being. That is ultimately the purpose of the human sexuality on the spiritual journey, is to connect with that inherent divinity. But first we have to connect with it within ourselves, and we have to go through all these layers of agitation, of passion, of inertia, of depression, of anxiety, all these inner demons we have to conquer within ourselves as much as we can, to really be in a state of pure balance and clarity, and the kind of tranquility and peace that will allow the light of that true divine self to radiate within yourself. Because the more clear you are of all these emotional traumas and issues, the less they have power over you, power to control you, the more you're going to be able to experience what is divine within you. And then the more you'll be able to discern who is going to be a partner who will also reflect that divinity back to you, with whom you may share this energy safely and securely. And the two practices that have really helped me a lot on my spiritual journey over the past 12 years are the practices that Goddess Brahmacharya is representing through what is called the Japa Mala, or the set of rosary beads, and through the practice of a water purification or a water healing ritual, which I will share with you. So the first practice is chanting mantras on a rosary bead necklace or garland, or it's called a mala in Sanskrit. And you can basically choose a mala that has 9 beads, 27 beads, it can have 81 beads, or the full traditional 108 beads. And what you do in this practice is you take the mala. Traditionally you hold it with your middle finger and the thumb, because the thumb is representing the self and the index finger is the ego. So that's why you'll see this mudra a lot, and it's where the thumb and the index finger are connected, and it's like the ego, the index finger, is literally bowing down to the self, which is represented by the thumb. So this is the mudra of awakened consciousness and of really transcending all of the 3 qualities of the mind: the inertia state of the mind, the agitated state of the mind, and even the clear state of the mind, because the observer goes beyond all of this, and the observer is what we want to be connected to, identified with, not these 3 layers, not even the pure, clear, balanced, focused, harmonious state of the mind. We want to go beyond that. We want to actually experience, who are we beyond this mind? Who are we beyond this body? And that is the self, and that is what this mudra represents. So when you're chanting the mantras, you will traditionally hold the mala with your your middle finger and thumb, and then you go in a clockwise motion and you move the beads slowly, one at a time. And as you're on the bead, you will chant a mantra, and then you move on to the next one and you chant a mantra. You can either chant it out loud or you can whisper it, or after time, you can internally chant it. It helps to do it at a gross physical level of physically chanting it out loud in the beginning, just to help train the mind. I started by doing it out loud, and then I quieted it down to a whisper, and then eventually I went into silently chanting this mantra. And the mantra that I always chant when I do my japa mala practice is the Gayatri mantra, which is the mantra that evokes the power of the light of the sun within yourself, because the sun represents the self. The sun represents health and wealth and abundance and courage and willpower and vitality and all the things, all the qualities that we need to overcome our traumas and to really be the hero of our own spiritual journey. So this mantra goes like this. I'll chant it for you if you'd like to start to learn this, and I can leave it in the show notes for you as well. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I love chanting these mantras, and it actually made me feel that at the end of each of these podcast episodes, I should start chanting a mantra for you. So I think I may do that. I love this Gayatri mantra, and I chant it more quickly than what I just did when I'm going on the 108 beats. But it's such an incredible thing to really feel physically, emotionally, mentally, that heaviness and that inertia of the mind becoming passion, motion, activity, and then that passion, motion, frenzied, anxious activity actually giving way to purity of the mind, giving way to clarity of the mind, giving way to balance of the mind. It's such a beautiful feeling to actually witness that through the witness observer consciousness in this practice. When you do it, it's really helpful to evoke a witness and to ask whomever you most connect to. It could be the sky, it could be the goddess brahmacharya herself, or the warrior mother goddess Durga, who is the subject of my book, The Way of the Goddess. Whoever resonates with you, it could be a guru of yours or an ancestor or an animal even, whoever reminds you of that divine within you would be great to call upon for your practice, and then to really make an intention for why you're doing your practice. And this is really major because it's hard, like I had shared earlier, to let go of anything. We have to really anchor ourselves in something higher and to be able to create that intention for ourselves that's going to be most personally meaningful. So for me, it was always, well, now I'm clear through this doorway of the senses that I am not here for that. I'm actually here for a spiritual North Star of liberation while living, spiritual freedom, moksha in Sanskrit. So that's just the easy one-word intention that I always set for my practice, but yours could be anything that is meaningful to you. After I had this period of straying from the brahmacharya practice, I really also set an intention that my body is my temple, and that would really bring me home to myself. Anytime I got tempted by distractions or desire for pleasant tasting foods or sweet tasting foods or anything like that, well, if my body is a temple, then would I offer this to my body right now? And that had a way of anchoring me back and helping me to put down what was tempting and to come closer to this intention of my own making and choosing. The other practice that I will share with you is that of the water healing or water cleansing ritual, which is known as Sandhya Vandanam in Sanskrit. This is a really, really powerful practice where you put water into a copper vessel, ideally, but you can put it into any kind of jar or vessel that you have that is going to work for you. And you will be able to actually pour a little bit of water into your hand and reflect on one big emotion you may have experienced in the past 24 hours or are still experiencing even as you're doing this practice, and really bring it into your consciousness through that observer witness that can witness this and not be just fully identified with whatever it is, and really through the water make the intention that I now let go of the power you have over me. I acknowledge you, fear, sadness, lust, frustration, anger, rage, whatever it may be. I acknowledge you, I see you, I put you into my hand, and I free myself from being under your control. I see this temptation or desire for chocolates or sweets or candies or cookies or whatever it may be that I used to really enjoy going to for emotional comfort. I see you. I let go of the power you have over my mind and over my spiritual journey. And I call back all the power of the universe back to my own self. And then through the water, we can also consciously bless each of our senses to go back into the world and be able to filter better, be able to see more clearly, be able to smell more distinctly, to be able to taste the flavors more acutely, to be able to hear what is auspicious and bring in only those inputs into our senses, into our relationships, into our lives that are really going to be of service to us on our spiritual journey to know the truth of who we really are. And so we can bring our hands here and we can place we can put the fingers into the water, and then we can place that onto our head. May my head be blessed. May I receive good spiritual connection through my crown chakra. And then we can bless our eyes to see that which is auspicious, to hear only those words that reflect the truth, to be able to put into our mouth only that which is going to heal our bodies, to be able to bring the gods, the divine beings into our speech and into our throat, to be able to bless our heart, to truly connect with compassion for all living beings, including our own self. And then we can bless our navel area with this water, that may I digest all of my life's food, information, emotions, and life experiences and transmute them into soul power. And then finally, may my hands and feet be blessed to walk and interact in this world with more clarity, with more inner light, which is the light of the true self. And with that, we can then offer any water that remains to the sun, ideally early in the morning. When you see the rising sun, you can offer this water to the sun, and it's a way to connect with all the 5 elements according to Ayurveda. Water is offered to the ground or to plants, which is earth, in the open air of space that holds us, and the sun is the embodiment of the fire. So it's a beautiful way to really offer our emotions, which are really represented by the water element, to the purifying, transforming, metabolizing light of the fire of the sun, to be able to empower us ultimately to come home to our own divine true self. And so I leave you with these 2 really, really potent practices. And if you are enjoying the idea of trying them and wanting a little more guidance on them, I would recommend that you check out my book, The Way of the Goddess, Daily Rituals to Awaken Your Inner Warrior and Discover Your True Self. You can get a hard copy version with beautiful illustrations by Gabby Golar, my illustrator from the UK, or you can also listen on audiobook. I did the audio recording of the whole book, and it's available wherever you get your audiobooks. And the hard copy is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the other retailers out there. Wherever you like to get books, you can find this, and it will be there to support you on your spiritual journey. And if you feel called to really go even deeper into this, then you are also welcome to join a 14-day free trial of the Circle of Life community program that my organization, The Ancient Way, offers to all sincere seekers who really wish to embody the 9 powers of the Navratri 9-night goddess festival, which are the powers of stability, creativity, transformation, love, voice, intuition, truth, rejuvenation, and intention, with the ultimate intention of learning to lead, serve, and love with integrity. That's really what this whole journey of my book and of the community and of the programs are all about. In the community, we have a lot of different practices designed to really help you to heal even more from any emotional pain and trauma you may have gone through, and to really become your own hero of your own spiritual journey in the process. We have a lot of amazing Sacral Chakra healing foods and recipes. We have a lot of embodiment tutorials and some dance recordings, because dance is another really beautiful spiritual practice to be able to channel your energy into a higher spiritual energy, into a devotional practice, which is no less of a spiritual practice than the ones I have shared with you about in this podcast. We also have live power of practice circles where you can connect with other seekers around what it means to really practice these teachings, and we have audio recordings of chakra visualizations you can do to heal all of your chakras. And we are actually about to launch a whole writing program and really empowering you to pursue writing as a spiritual path of profound healing from any kind of emotional pain or trauma. And also teaching everyone who is feeling inspired how you can publish your own book, either yourself through self-publishing, or how to make a proposal that a publisher would be interested in supporting and bringing to life. So it's a really amazing opportunity. We'll be pulling together a lot of amazing resources for it, and we're really excited to open this up to you. And we already have such a wonderful community of seekers from all over the world, so we would love to have you join us. We're so fortunate also that our organization is now an Association for Spiritual Integrity accredited organization that is abiding by a certain honor code that you can read about on the Association for Spiritual Integrity website. It's a topic that is very close to my heart, given my own experiences, and one that I plan to do a lot of advocacy and talking about and bringing awareness to, not just as another Me Too sort of movement, but really as a, yes, this happened and this was my fire, my catalyst to become the most evolved spiritual version of myself. At the beginning of my book, I have written how the greatest teachers are those who push you to own your true power. It is a statement I stand by, I live by, and I keep deepening myself into. And I invite you to join me on that, and to really together truly lead, serve, and love with the fire of our personal example. And with that, I wish you a wonderful week, and I look forward to joining you again next week on the True to Yourself podcast, a place where we explore the power of authentic living. Namaste.